Alright, we are recording for, yes, Chapter 8 of Star Trek V Final Frontier. Not quite halfway, because isn't it 18 chapters plus an epilogue plus the Mountains of Gaul? So, yeah, not quite halfway in the main body of the story. Excuse me. Anyway, I'm hoping I can keep this video short. I might not be able to, though, because, yeah, there's some stuff that's gonna get me ranting. Off the bat, though, we do have this. That's literally the last sentence of the first paragraph. The doctor was less than pleased about the fact that the ship had just entered the neutral zone, without the benefit of a cloaking device. There's actually a second reference later on as well to, and if only we had a cloaking device. You don't have cloaking devices in Starfleet. That's not a thing. Technically, you should have that technology because of the Enterprise incident in the original series, but presumably they gave up that technology or something in order to, as part of a treaty with the Romulan Empire, thing would get them peace, but also mean, no, we don't have cloaks. Which, by the way, is an impressively stupid concept. It's like, so this critical piece of military technology, we're just going to say, no, we're not going to develop it. We're going to sign a treaty saying we're not going to do that, but you can still have it. Which means then that the Romulans can just have cloaked fleets that will enter Federation space and no problem at all. And you know what? I'm going to pause this for just a second to get something. Okay. I haven't watched this copy yet. I've seen Hunt for October many times. It's a very good movie. At some point I may read the book. I don't know. But it's still, what was the whole thing about the Red October? Was the Caterpillar drive, that it had a way that it could move with minimal noise. So it, not quite, but was kind of cloaked. For passive sonar, at least, it wouldn't be seen. Active sonar would be able to pick it up. But you tend not to do that. Tend not to use that. And part of the reason Ramius wanted to defect, taking the ship with him, boat. I think submarines are typically referred to as boats, not as ships. In any case, a reason why is because he recognized that the balance of power with that was so great that it's like, no, I need to bring it to the Americans so they can engineer this themselves so it bounces back out. Because you do have the one statement earlier in the movie about how when I was a kid, I helped my daddy build, as I said, I've watched it many times, helped my daddy build a bomb shelter because, crap, I don't remember how he described Castro or Khrushchev for that, but in any case, because it might have just been somebody parked a dozen warheads 90 miles off the coast of Florida. This thing could park 90 warheads off New York and D.C., and we wouldn't know anything about it until it was all over. You know, that kind of line there. It's like, you don't sign a treaty that literally allows your enemy to do that. You don't. And Ramius understood that, and he also makes a comment later about he knew it was a first strike weapon. That is what its purpose would be, and he didn't want that. So, he's going to defect. But it was about getting the technology there, so potentially they could figure out a way to detect it. Technically, that was already figured out during the course of the movie before they get the ship, the boat. But still, by both sides having it, it equalizes things back to where he felt it would be better. Which mutually assured destruction is a way to stop an enemy from deciding to attack you. But yeah, I get it as a literary concept because you don't want Starfleet to have cloaking devices. It kind of could lead to some weird situations, but it's also really stupid. That should never have actually been signed. I will say, the episode of TNG that is in season 7, and I think it might just be titled The Pegasus, I do like that episode. That is, I like the technical stuff, in case you couldn't tell. I like the technical stuff, so I really like that episode. That's a fun episode. Plus, I liked The Rocketeer, and we get the Howard Hughes character from that in that actor, he does a good job. He does a good job. Rocketeer, very good movie. Definitely recommend that. Because now I'm just thinking, Rocketeer and Hunt for Red October. Let me check. Look at one thing. This is PG. Okay. I do have a copy of The Rocketeer. I just don't remember where it is. On Blu-ray. They're different enough movies. I think I might be willing to say Rocketeer is better, but I already know in my mind, because when that thought entered my mind, that it got an immediate bias to Rocketeer is something you can show basically any kid. That might actually be rated G instead of PG. I'm not sure. It might also be PG, but it's like I could believe that would actually be... The way I've put it in other times is like a lower shelf. Like the low shelf is where, you know, it's like a kid can take that and just watch it whenever. There's no issue at all. There it is. It is also PG. Okay. 6.5? Who the hell gives a Rocketeer 6.5? What's on for October have? 7.4. Even that I got a little bit of problem with. I think it deserves better than that. Both are very good movies. But regardless, yeah. I've never liked that concept in Star Trek that they can't have cloak and device because it doesn't make sense. What would make more sense if it were no, we're not giving up the technology. We can work on it together. Like, you want to come together so we both have this technology. That you could offer. Romulans might still say no, but it's still... You doing that would not be inappropriate. And it's also, what are the Romulans going to do? Say, well, no. If you don't sign this treaty, it'll be war. And Starfleet can just be like, yeah? And then we'll just produce these and start raiding your empire freely. I mean, it's like... What do you think's going to happen here if you say no to this peace treaty? It's like, well, we'll do that to you. It's like, that's the point. That's why we're not going to sign the treaty. Anyway. What the hell is this next one? Yeah, so this was just an odd thing. Spock turned from the viewer to catch the captain's eye. Klingon bird of prey now entering this quadrant. Estimated 1.9 hours until her weapons come to bear. Claw didn't cloak the ship already? That seems odd, because they are able to travel at warp while cloaked. Now, that actually would have been fair. It would break so many things, so many stories in there, but it would be fair if you did have cloaking technology in a science fiction universe that it is not it is not available at superluminal speeds, and that it's like same rules as Star Trek in that cannot fire when cloaked, one exception. Cannot use shields while cloaked, but if you added that it cannot travel at superluminal speeds, it can't travel at warp while cloaked, that would be interesting. That would be pretty fair, but it would also be fascinating because of the whole... You could then see a fleet moving and then it just drop out of warp, cloaks, and it's like, okay, based on where they were, we think that they can get at this far in this amount of time, but you don't necessarily know, you don't know where they are, and maybe they're not actually there. I could legitimately see, in a situation like that, you set up ships, maybe even like dummy ships where there's like skeleton crews or less than that just do that, and then stop so that you think they're staging for something. But you just have them like disperse and just hang out for like 24, 48 hours so people think that something's going on there, but it's actually... I could see that happening. That actually would be a very interesting strategy. But anyway. But no, they can cloak while it warps, so why is he not already cloaked? I don't understand. Cybok is being a little weird. He's thinking about what it would mean if the Klingons or the Federation get here first. And as acknowledged, if the Klingons get here, they'll just destroy everyone here. So, yeah. I mean, to be fair, in some circumstances, I can understand that. Even with hostages, where it's like, no, we are denying you any hostages. We will just wipe everything. I can understand that. I don't think that this is a situation that would provoke that, though. Because this isn't a... fully. It's a terroristic act, yes, but it's not a fully hostile act. Like, it's clear Cybok is looking to negotiate, so it doesn't make it doesn't make sense to respond in that way. That would not be appropriate. But the clans don't necessarily care. But he does also have this. Only a starship bore the weaponry impressive enough to strike fear in the hearts of desperate terrorists. Only a starship possessed the capabilities Cybok required to complete his quest. But it's like, only a starship has the weaponry to intimidate you? The hell's a bird of prey? Let me do that so I'm a bit better centered. A bird of prey is described as being a scout ship. So they are actually appreciably smaller than the Constitution class, which is also, by the way, smaller. Even the refit is smaller than the Excelsior. So it's, I feel like we don't really get a definition of what a starship is. I just assume that it's larger, more powerful, as in not necessarily that it's faster, not necessarily that it has better armaments than other ships, but that its power systems themselves are greater, such that it can support more things. So it is just generally more powerful. As opposed to, you might have a freighter that is as fast because, hey, it's beneficial to go fast, but it can just run the engines that fast. It can't also run shields. It can't also run weapons. So it's like, I see something like that. But it's still, why couldn't there be a gunship? Or even a merchant ship that does in fact have guns on it? I mean, we did that during World War II. Like the whole merchant marine concept there, and there were merchant ships that, yeah, we put guns on because we needed to. There's a way to keep the convoys safe without having to dedicate like actual destroyers and such, which didn't necessarily have enough of. And so, yeah, I mean, it's it seems odd, this idea that only Starship bore the weaponry. And plus, Klingons would arrive in Blast Paradise City cleanly from the planet's surface. So a Klingon ship would be capable of this as well. So it doesn't need to be a starship either. I mean, it is a nonsense statement. Even from just a sentence prior to it. But there's also this. That's, again, pretty nonsense, based on what we've been told. Cybok believed in fate. If the Klingons arrived first and killed him, the homesteaders and the hostages, then meant Cybok had been misguided. That his mission was a self-created idle fantasy. Well, technically it would not have been self-created because his mother did it, but still. But if a starship came first, it would show that he, Cybok, was in fact divinely guided, divinely protected. It would prove him to be the Sheev... I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The Messiah, ancient Vulcan term for Messiah, of legend, and it would quell his private doubts that he had been indulging himself in egotistic fantasy. Or the Federation is closer. Like the Admiral said a chapter or two ago. Like, why are we going? Because you're the closest ship. You're closer than... Yeah. It's like, but we're not prepared. What about the Klingons? It's like, you'll be there sooner than they will. Like, they're further away. It's like, congratulations, Cybok. It's a coincidence. It's... Fine. You can still say it's fate, but there is still a... Dude, look at a map. What is closer? Kronos? Well, or maybe just Klingon Empire proper? Or frickin' Earth? Earth is... It's not necessarily fate, it's just geography. But he's like, oh, this is confirmation. I know everything's going to work out exactly as I want it to. It's like... Couldn't you just have it be that you set that you recognize this, that, oh, Nimbus is closer to the Federation than is to the Klingon Empire, so you have the best chance of it being the Federation that gets there, and like actually do the math and figure out that, okay, there'll be about 2-hour difference between the Federation arriving and the Klingons arriving, so I need to make sure that when I get this in 2 hours, I can get aboard the starship. Need to make sure that I can do that. That would have been so much better. Because it's showing he's actually thought this through. That he actually has a plan. That he's not just winging it. And it can still be that he's fully this religious zealot. He can still do that. But have him be intelligent, whereas this is like, I'm just, this stuff is preordained. It's going to happen this way. I get that it can work that way, but it still is. We're not even halfway through the story yet, and you're giving this to, you're setting this up with Cybok. I feel like you're just making him seem more crazy instead of more somebody who's actually planned this out. Yeah. But we also have this line that I need to go back for a little bit, but I'll read this first. He jerked his head up suddenly as the screen flickered. He's alone in the saloon and is just in front of the communications panel. But he says his head down to rest because he's basically not been sleeping for a while. But a human face, female, dark and lovely, appeared before him. So the strong suggestion here is it's Uhura, but also Paradise City. This is the Federation Starship Enterprise. Please respond. A Federation starship. So it's like, great, I'm right. Here's the problem, though. He has been in front of the communications thing for a while, but we go back. Hailing frequencies open, Uhura told the captain. Stand orbit, Mr. Sulu, blah, blah, blah. Captain Uhura's voice struck a note of urgency. We're receiving a transmission from Paradise City. They demand to know our intentions. Give us some time, Commander. Respond with static. Let them think we're having difficulties. Paradise City, could you boost your power? We're barely receiving a transmission. So Uhura's having conversation, all right? And is the whole hailing frequencies open? They contacted us. They're talking to us. But then we cut to Cybok, because I went back a couple pages, now going forward again. And Cybok, fine, you step back in time a little bit, but it's the communication. That's when things are syncing up. Except Paradise City, this is the Federation Starship Enterprise. Please respond. That's not what Uhura said. That's not what happened. But he's discovering it's a Federation ship. Which the communication from a couple pages ago already established. But what's more, a human male, dark-haired and authoritative, frowned at the screen. It was all Cybok could do not to laugh in his ecstasy, blah, blah, blah. This is Captain Pavel Chekhov speaking. Son of a bitch. So what this is indicating is Kirk has already recognized we need to buy time because the transporters aren't working, so we need to use a shuttlecraft to get down there. We need to buy time. Me, Spock, McCoy, Uhura as well, which is confusing because, like, oh, wait, she's on the mission? Then who's this dark woman who was on the communications channel with Cybok? I mean, it could just be somebody else, but it's like, kind of curious. You staffed communications with 2 black women? Okay. But I mean, that just seems an odd coincidence. But it still is. Captain Pavel Chekhov in command here is, so you're buying time, but it's like, wait a minute, so this is happening. Kirk was on the bridge, now he's already put together his plan, and is having Pavel do this. But we're here. This is the first, and it's all part of the first time that Cybok is communicating with the Enterprise. But it's back here that the Enterprise first was in communication with Paradise City. Cybok is literally at the communication station alone. You have 2 events that either must be at the same time, but are clearly described as not being at the same time, or 2 events that are different. Yet Cybok should have knowledge from Event 1 that he does not have at Event 2. See, I'm wondering a little bit if we're supposed to try to believe that Kirk just got up, moved out, and had Chekhov take the center seat. But it's still, Uhura would not leave during this act of communication. Because that is her job, is communication. She's not interrupting this, right? To get up and join them. So that's one issue. Another is she asks them to boost their signal. She never says that to Cybok, even though Cybok's is the only one at the communications terminal, and there's never been any indication there's another. And even then, this conversation her was having, Cybok would be aware of, because he's in front of a communications panel. Like, somebody would be like, "Hey, Cybok, we got them on the horn. Want to be part of this?" I mean, these are literally pages apart. I mean, it just... The thought has occurred to me. Do I want to try becoming an editor? Because remember, this was published. So you had the author write it. You had the editor go through it, at least one editor go through it. There should be multiple people that went through this story, though, because it's Star Trek. Okay, that's significant. And they're missing shit like this that I'm catching on my first readings, be like, "Hey, this doesn't work." Maybe I should try to become an editor. I don't know. I do not know. Partly it's, I don't know what I would want to edit, but there's also, I don't know how quickly I could do it. That legitimately is part of it. I don't know how quickly I could edit. That may sound silly, but it's like, I don't necessarily want to give up my current job yet. If I had a good opportunity, yeah, sure. But it's like, it is just, whoever edited this did a very bad job. And the sad part is how I can say that about some of the other books too. Oh my god. My background, my degree is in math. I wear this. I was inducted into Sigma Pi Sigma, a physics and astronomy honor society. I don't have a proper English or literature background, and I'm better at catching this shit than people who should have that background. And at minimum, were professionals at it, because they were getting legitimate pay for this. Next thing I have highlighted here is Kirk took the phaser and handheld force shield her offered him. And that was mainly just, well, wait, I thought she was on communications with Cybok. So it's like, okay, we just have apparently 2 black women that operate communications for the Enterprise. I mean, it's possible, it just seems quite a coincidence. I mean, when you consider how few black people you do see on the Enterprise, that is a little surprising that you got 2 that are at the same station. That's, I mean, I'm not saying that as far, because I know some people would be like, yes, there should be more. I don't care. I legitimately don't care, one way or the other, however many. Uhura is awesome. She is there because she's great at it. And it's just, that's who I want there, because she's great at it. Geordi, fucking awesome in his job, want him there. Worf, fucking awesome at his job, want him. It's like, they were all, the 90s were fun, man. This is one hell of an aside, but I feel like I should explain this. I got to grow up in the 90s watching things like Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager. A little later, because that stuff I was watching when it was first coming on, a little later is when I got to watch Stargate. All of them had awesome black characters on there. It was like Tuvok as well. I don't care as much for Voyager, but still, Tuvok, good character. And you know what I saw there? I just saw people. I just saw good characters. They happened to be black. It was awesome in the 90s, because that's what you grew up with. They were just great characters. And that was it. They happened to be black as well, but they were great characters first. That's what you're watching. It was awesome. Loved it. And like I said, Uhura is who I want at communications, because she's awesome at it. Geordi I want in engineering, because he's awesome at that. Although first he was pilot navigator, and then they moved him. First season was a little weird. They were shuffling things around. But Worf, he was always in security and was great at it. I mean, it's like, that's who I want there. It'd be weird when somebody else was there. Not counting Tasha Yar. She was great too. Don't get me wrong on that. But I just mean, it's like, what? Who's once you get into the bulk of TNG, who do you want at security and at tactical? You want Worf. That's who you want there. You don't want anyone else. And also Cisco, going there as well. Who else do you want on Deep Space Nine and on the Defiant? And also, I will add that I know I've said this before. I knew I'd go off on rants, just not this one. Of all the Star Trek captains, Kirk, Picard, Cisco, Janeway. Archer as well, I don't remember what ultimately happens with him, so I'm going to set that aside. Also, I don't care as much for Enterprise. But all four of those captains, there's something interesting. Cisco is the only one who is not, at some point, an admiral. Even within broadcast Trek. Kirk becomes an admiral in the movies. Right? Well, is an admiral in the movies. Picard is at least depicted as being an admiral in All Good Things. Which, maybe we take that as being canon, maybe not. But it's like, yeah, okay. I think it's reasonable to accept he becomes an admiral. And then, of course, there's Star Trek Picard, where he is an admiral. I have not seen that. I'm comfortable not accepting it as canon anyway. But it's like, I'm willing to go with that All Good Things, the image of the future there, is accurate enough that, yes, he would become an admiral, and Janeway becomes an admiral. But Cisco is the only one that ever actually demonstrates he's competent enough to be an admiral. And competent at the role of a flag officer because of his work during the Dominion War. He was planning things with Admiral Ross. I think it was Ross. It's like, he's the only one that actually proved himself to be capable of fulfilling the duties of such a flag officer. Only one who never becomes an admiral. All the others do. And I know I've talked about this before, at least I'm pretty sure I have. And it's so silly because it's like Kirk, the whole thing is, yeah, he should never have become an admiral. He's a captain. That's his greatest, his true vocation. Picard, no, there's never really a time that he demonstrates that he is admiral material. He's a diplomat. He's a politician to a degree, so in that way, but no. And Janeway is Admiral Janeway in Nemesis, in Star Trek Nemesis. I don't remember what the gap would be between the end of Voyager and that. But seemingly it was, she managed to command her ship back from the Delta Quadrant to Earth. And apparently decided, hey, that's awesome. You showed yourself to be an excellent captain. Here, we'll make you an admiral. That's not really how that works. It doesn't make sense there. I will grant, though, it makes slightly more sense than Claw being promoted to captain. Janeway's definitely got that going for her. So, yeah. But, anyway. Yeah, if I had another... Okay. Oh, yeah. But let me also check... Okay. There was a lot that I didn't have to highlight in this. Because it's like, whatever, yeah, the stuff's just happening, and it's like, not interesting one way or the other. But do get this, where, okay, so the shuttlecraft has landed on the planet. And, they're like, crap, how are we going to get to the city? Because we don't want to get picked up on their sensors. And we don't have enough time to walk it. And it's like, oh, cool, over there's a group of guards. And they have horses, so if we can just capture them, take the horses, we're good. We follow then for a time one of the people in that group. Arid, I think is how you pronounce his name. Anyhow. And he's basically reflecting on, or at least we're being told his history here, that his friend Jesha... So, okay, Arid was, like many of the other settlers, a criminal. He accepted this position instead of going to jail. He hates it here, but regardless, he has joined a gang, essentially, and they steal, extort in order to survive instead of trying to do anything more honest. And the head of their group, Jesha, that's who Sybok went to see, and Jesha did the whole, share your pain with me thing, and he tried to get other people in there as well. Arid is like, nope, I ain't doing that. You people just being hypnotized. I'm out. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want to be involved with this. You people, you all come back as religious zealots. He doesn't want that. Yeah, wild-eyed religious fools. There it is. This Cybok was nothing more than a hypnotist, and Arid would be damned before he let a hypnotist control him. So it's like, nope, not doing this. And it's also, what are you talking about pain? The only pain I have is hunger. A comment is made that somehow Cybok is making sure everyone is fed. Where that food is coming from isn't mentioned, but anyway. What does get Arid to serve Cybok, though, is... Wait, what did you say about Starship? Because he's like, I want off this planet. If we had trade vessels here, which should be there because of it being common to all three these major governments, but setting that aside, he was even like, even though it could cost me my life, I would still try to stow away on a ship to get out of here. So it's like, you're bringing Starship here, I am in. You got me. He's not necessarily saying it out loud to them, though, because the moment it gets here, I am going to try to get on that and just leave. I don't give a shit about any of you. I want out of this world. That's going to be my ticket. Fine, I will help you get it here. Once it's here, maybe I'm not sticking. So it's like, it is interesting. It is the whole, that's his motivation. Good for him. He has not been touched by Cybok, which I do find interesting because it does mean that Cybok isn't compelling that on everyone. Because it did seem before, like, he didn't allow... We've not seen this prior. This is the first mention of him not forcing people to go through this. Because he didn't necessarily need to do it to the ambassadors, to the delegates, to the dignitaries, whatever the hell the term... I think it was delegate? Whatever. He didn't need to do it... Potentially, he didn't need to do it for them, do it to them. But yeah, it just... I do, regardless, when whatever it is I'm trying to say and I'm stumbling over very badly, there's at least one guy, he just wants out. And then we have the whole, how are they distracted so that the horses can be stolen, they can be captured and all that, is her singing. Now, in the movie, she is naked for this and has feather fans or something for her dance as well. It's like, okay. I never really understood it in the movie aside from just, let's have, well, I don't know if Nichelle Nichols actually was naked for that, or just because, you could hide some of that, just have her in something dark. It's already at night, so it's going to be hard to see if she is in fact wearing clothing, but it's like, you still got the guard saying, she naked, she still got that. But it's like, why? It's not really all that necessary, and in this, it is kind of clear that it's just the fact that there's a woman there. There's like no women on Nimbus. We're going. And he even, while like running there, is thinking about how, it's like she's human, and is just how, I don't know much about human mythology, but didn't they have the concept of a moon goddess? Well, in this case, it would be Moon's goddess, because we got 2 moons on Nimbus. But it's like, he's just thinking, maybe this is good. Maybe this is a good sign that we're going to succeed, that Cybok is going to succeed. But as he's continuing, it also occurs to him, wait a minute. I don't want to be a goddess. I want to be a woman. I can do more. A woman's going to be more useful. But it's like, that's what he's doing. So it's like, her just being there and singing, and does describe it as a seductive song and mysterious. It's like, that's really all she needs to do, and just be a woman there, and they're gonna come. She doesn't need to be naked. So there's no indication she's naked. There's no indication of the fans. In fact, yeah, let me... So it is right near the end. Each delicate hand held a phaser, one directed at Jess's head, the other at Arid's. On either side of her, uniformed Federation soldiers appeared, and all of them similarly armed. I've always wanted to play to a captive audience, the woman said. So, she's not holding the fan, she's holding phasers. And it's like, why did they choose to make her naked in the movie? I don't know. Because it is unnecessary. I'm just trying to think, could it have been something like Shatner was just like, why not? And I could see an argument that, well, film is a visual medium, books are not. So for the movie, we want something more visual. She naked. So, and even though they are saying that as well, but it's like, so that it makes it more clear why they will go to her. Whereas in the book, it can just, you can be in the dude's head, and how it's like, the only women, they're either like, in gangs for protection, or basically never leave outposts. So they have walls protecting them. Out in the desert, we're going. I mean, it's... Which is also a little funny, because John's wife was there, and he seemingly was... I mean, there's no indication of them ever being harassed or anything like that. So, anyway, I was like, women were around. But, I guess it's still, maybe they were just sufficiently out in the middle of nowhere, or it is possible this can be an actual thing, that even these criminals would be like, she's married, we're not going to touch that, we're not going to do anything with that. There are some that's exactly how they would be, where it's like, look, I know we rob, we steal, I know, and extort, I know we do that, but adultery? Nah, we're not crossing that line. It is interesting how evil people with ill intent, people that do commit crimes and such, there's still lines for them of things that they will not do, and ones that other people won't even necessarily consider that serious. I mean, there are some serious lines where, yeah, you don't cross that line. Everybody understands that, okay? Like, only the truly depraved cross that line. But then there are still nearer lines where it's like, I would never do that. And not even, it's also things where it's like, I can also use one example here, but, like murder is one obvious example for some criminals where it's like, dude, I will steal, I will con people, but I will never kill someone. I don't even want to hit someone. It's like, there are definitely guys like that. But it's also going back to the adultery thing. There's an episode of MASH where an aspect of Hawkeye's character is, if there's a pretty woman, he wants to sleep with her. But there is one way, there's a pretty woman, and he is very attracted to her, very interested. But she wears a wedding ring, and he's really torn, and he even, like, is trying to make moves on her, but is just constantly stopping, because he's like, yes, madam, married madam, you're a married madam, I can't be doing this. And then she's like, no, I'm not. You're not? What's with the jewelry? Cuts down wrestling matches. Cool. And then, so it's like she's doing that to, she said, cut down on the wrestling matches, and so she can choose who she may or may not be involved with. But it's like, even Hawkeye, no, that's a line he is not interested in crossing. And does try to avoid crossing. So, but it is still, I mean, it's like, part of his character is, yeah, he tries to sleep with every woman he can. So, anyway, this video is definitely gone to weird places, various places. Whatever. Yeah, fine. I'll look and just see what are we looking forward to for chapter 9? Because I mean, yeah, it's gonna be them doing what they can to rescue the hostages. It turns out to be a trap, all that fun stuff. Oh yeah, the personal force shield thing though. Since when does Starfleet have that technology? I don't recall that ever being mentioned before, and certainly never shown later. It's like, even in the Federation Klingon War in Deep Space Nine, and in the Dominion War as well. Because I'm just trying to think, you really don't have many instances in that show of ground fighting. There is one with the Klingons. I can't remember the episode name, but it's the one where Jake is going with Bashir, and they like end up crash landing more or less on a planet that is under siege. And it's it is a very interesting episode, and good for a good episode for Sir Eric Lofton, who played Jake Sisko. Good episode for him. And how it ends with him, ultimately writing the story about how he was afraid and how he ran from various things that scared him. And how even though he was a hero because he took a phaser and basically with a phaser rifle and was shooting to collapse a ceiling, and that saved a bunch of people because it cut off the ability for the Klingons to reach them. But he basically confesses that no, he just was shooting wildly because he was so terrified. And, sharing other things in there as well. And this was also in part because he needed to confess that he abandoned Bashir. And Bashir forgave him. I mean, probably even without this, Bashir forgave him. But he needed to confess that. And I know his father does sit down and basically tell him that there is not one person in Starfleet, basically, there's not one veteran of combat that doesn't recognize everything you have written here as true for themselves. And he doesn't say that in a way to just comfort Jake. Saying, oh, no, that don't worry about it, this is no, he's saying it as we all know that fear. And it's only when we're in that situation we know what we're going to do. And you do see Jake change, because he goes from first running to later on, he does stay, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just firing wildly and nearly kills himself even, but at least he is acting a little bit. So you do see some movement there, but it still is that statement of, we all know that fear. And you sharing that, you confessing that like this. For one thing, that does show your bravery, that you're willing to do that. But is also that fear we all know. So do not feel guilty from that. But I think that there's also, while he's saying that, or just some other aspects of that, the end of the episode, where it is cutting around, you're seeing the different people on the ship, and, you do see Bashir reading it. But it is, kind of suggesting that, yes, there are multiple people there that do agree with that. I don't quite remember exactly. It's been a while since I've watched the episode, but it's a good episode. I do like that episode. But the reason why I even started talking about that is you do see after he gets separated from Bashir and runs off, he encounters a Starfleet grunt, at least. I don't remember if he was an officer or not, who has been wounded, and the dude even gives Jake his water, because it's it's not worth my drinking it. It's just going to run out of me because of all the holes. But he is wearing this, different uniform. Presumably what he's wearing is some sort of armor. It's just a fabric that we're seeing, but still he is wearing that. There's no indication even there that there's personal shields. And then later, with that Siege of whatever, I cannot remember the name of that episode perfectly, but it's the one when Nog loses his leg, and it's the one with Billy Mummy, or Mummy, however he says you pronounce it. It's that episode, which again, another good episode. And yes, it is season 7 because it's got Ezri in it. But in that, they're not wearing anything special. They're not wearing anything special at all for armor. And you're not seeing anything for personal shield. So that is kind of curious. Now, true, I am technically reading that as though this is canon. It is not strong canon. The movie would be more canon than this. So maybe it is just Dillard decided to put that in there. And it's he actually shouldn't have. I don't recall it being in the movie. I could be wrong, but yeah, it is. It is a little interesting. It is a little curious what some of that is. But it could also just be Dillard put that in there. No one was yeah, Starfleet doesn't have that technology. It doesn't exist in Star Trek, so you need to drop it. Could have had that happen as well. All right. I've blathered enough. Is what it is. So, yeah. See you next time.